I was a county commissioner.
Yeah, they
Came out there.
there you go.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, did everyone enjoy dinner? Our sincerest appreciation to Perry's for the fine job that they did. If you did not get enough, that is your fault. Before we begin our program, we'd like to take a moment to recognize some of our distinguished guests with us this evening. We are honored to have the following with us tonight. Senator John Stevens, who represents Tennessee's 24th Senate District, which includes Stewart County. Senator Stevens. Circuit Court Judge Larry Wallace, who represents the Tennessee's 23rd Judicial District. Circuit Court Judge Josh Turnbow, who represents Tennessee's 23rd Judicial District. Circuit Court Judge Bruce Griffey, who represents Tennessee's 24th Judicial District. And I understand that he got caught in court, which is the nature of the beast. May his adjudication be swift. State Representative Jay Reedy, who represents the 74th District of Tennessee House of Representatives, which includes Stewart County. State Representative Jody Barrett, who represents the 69th District of Tennessee House of Representatives. State Representative Gino Bolso, who represents the 61st District. Mayor Boo Beecham, who represents Stewart County as County Mayor. He had to go home and charge up that so-called Mustang. Has anybody talked to him about that? Just one. Tess Robbins, Tennessee State Republican Party Executive Committee Executive. We would like to express our sincere appreciation for all of you being here and supporting with us tonight and supporting our local party here in Stewart County. And of course, we want to thank all of our Republican Party members, our candidates, our supporters that are here this evening. Each one of you plays an important role in the success of our party and our community. So at this time, we would like to recognize the Stewart County Republican Party Executive Board. Miss Jacqueline Wallace, Chairperson. David Vance, Vice Chairman. Patsy Green, Secretary. Actually, she's Treasurer. You can tell that I read what I'm given. So at this time, join me in giving all of our guests and our dignitaries a warm round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. And at this time, I would ask David Vance and Kyle Mallory to approach the podium as they have an award presentation.
The Wheelbarrow Award was created several years ago to recognize individuals involved in Tennessee state politics who have shown extraordinary political will and or courage in advancing constitutional conservative principles for the people of Tennessee. So far, only 2 individuals have received this award. Today, we are proud to honor C. Richard Archie, the West Tennessee Director of the Tennessee Congress. U.S. Constitution and Section 26 of the Tennessee Constitution's right to keep and bear arms. He has been involved in every major political fight in the state regarding the right to keep and bear arms for the past 20 plus years. As an unpaid advocate for our rights, he has spent countless hours in Nashville pressuring lawmakers. A few here can attest to that, right? To uphold their oath and protect and advance our right to keep and bear arms. He is often the only person attending or speaking as a witness in the committee and surrounded by commie mommies on all sides. Usually, he has spent his time, money, and hours on the road, often on the phone, setting legislators straight on the legal facts of our state and U.S. Constitution and relevant court cases. He has traveled all over the state to speak to other groups in order to educate them on the facts and expose which legislators are truly advocating for our rights. Richard, we thank you for all you do and have done and offer this as just a token of our appreciation and respect. Kyle, you got anything to say?
I met Richard, I guess it's about 16, 18 years ago when I was county chair here. And we decided to take on, about 16 years ago, when we decided to take on Governor Haslam, this county GOP decided to take on Governor Haslam. And the things, the left-wing stuff that he was doing, and one of the first people I called was Richard, and he was there with us, and we were able to get a good victory against his rhinoism. So thank you again, Richard, for all your friendship. Y'all give him another round of applause, please.
I'm going to take just a second. Where's that?
It's on.
Okay. I'm going to take just a second. Normally, I don't need it in the first place because my voice tends to carry. Rusty Grills told me one time in a meeting that I needed to repeat it because the secretary at the other end of the hall didn't get it plainly. My job at the Tennessee General Assembly has been to be a filter about John Harris. From the time that I started working with the TFA and came on board as a board member, I would get calls from time to time from legislators saying, you need to put a rope on John Harris. Now, you need to understand that what he did for years was work for the Republican Party when we were in the minority. And so they loved him. I've got awards, pictures of him, what they said about John was doing a great deal. And so I kind of had a deal with the General Assembly. If I kept John quiet, we'd get what we want. In the last 20 years, I haven't gotten what I want. So we had to turn around and sue the cotton picking state because we can't get the General Assembly to do their job. And I intend to, before I die, see this stuff done right for my granddaughters. It is an absolute inherent right, unalienable and indefeasible for you to be able to carry a firearm in Tennessee and it not be a crime. Right now, our statutes say it is. We just were involved. John was the litigator who went to court and beat the tar out of them, and they can't stand it. Every one of you that propose to be or purport to be a Second Amendment official needs to write a letter to Jonathan Skrmetti and to our illustrious Governor Bill Lee, who is by constitutional order the only person in the state who is required to enforce the law. And so therefore, when they said he wasn't the party to be sued, that's incorrect. Write them a letter and tell them that you don't want them to appeal the Hughes et al. The Lee et al. Ruling, because it's valid, it's constitutional, and it needs to stand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Give one more round of applause.
Let's give Mr. Archie another big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for the work that he does. One final reminder, ladies and gentlemen, please place your bids on the silent auction. Place your bids on the silent auction. That will end around 8 o'clock, so make sure if there's something that you would like, put your bid on it. Ms. Jacqueline, are we ready for the candidates? Oh, that's right. On behalf of Stewart County Republican Party, I would like to welcome you to tonight's dinner. It's truly wonderful to see so many friends, neighbors, and supporters gathered here. Tonight is more about the meal that we enjoyed together. It's about fellowship. It's about community. It's about celebrating the values that unite us. Faith, family, freedom, and the commitment to serving this great country, our country. Your presence here shows the strength of our shared vision and the importance of working together to build a brighter future. We want to extend a special invitation to you. Please consider joining us at our monthly Republican Party meetings on the fourth Thursday of each month. These gatherings are a great way to stay informed, to get involved, to make your voice heard. We would be honored to have you as part of our ongoing efforts here in Stewart County. You can find us on Facebook at the Stewart County Republican Party page. For more information on our special guest appearances and updates, you can find those listed there. For more information on our morals, our beliefs, please turn your attention to the paper on your tabletops this evening. It's labeled Tennessee GOP Republican Party Guiding Principles. And this will give you an idea of what the core principles of the party are. This evening, we are especially honored to host a candidate forum for the 7th District of Tennessee's U.S. House of Representatives. Tonight, you'll hear directly from the candidates who are seeking to represent our district in Washington. This forum is an opportunity for each of us to learn more about their vision, their priorities, and how they plan to serve the people of Tennessee. We are grateful to the candidates for being here with us tonight, and to each of you for your commitment to the Republican Party and our shared cause. So, let us welcome again each of you. Thank you for your support. And let's enjoy a wonderful evening together as we prepare to hear from our candidates. Let's give our candidates a big round of applause. We'll ask our candidates to go ahead and approach the dais. Our candidates this evening, Representative Jody Barrett, Representative Gino Balso, Joe Lewers, Stuart Parks, and Matt Van Epps. We will begin with each candidate having 1.5 minutes to introduce themselves. We will go by alphabetical order. And gentlemen, I will give you an example. Please hold the microphone as I am if you wish to be heard. And so we will begin with Representative Jody Barrett.
We'll see if this works. Hey, there we go. And signage in the back there, you're telling me my time.
Yeah, when you're 15 seconds out, I'll raise this and then let you know you got 15 seconds to finish.
Could we not have found a prettier time person? Is that best we got back here?
Quite possibly.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jody Barrett. I'm state representative from Dickson County. Born and raised down there, born in Hickman County, raised in Dickson County. Have been serving in the legislature for the last 3 years representing Dickson, Hickman, and Lewis County. So I am the rural conservative candidate in this race. Grew up in a small town. I came back there after college and law school to start my family there, to build my career there. Been practicing law in Dickson for 25 years right here in this judicial district. In fact, one of my very first trials was with Judge Leonard Martin here in the courthouse in Dover. It's a legal dispute over an easement and a school bus turnaround. So come talk to me about it. It's really sexy. So when I talk about being a rural conservative and separating myself from the other fantastic candidates that you have to choose from here, I always try to tell folks to look at my record. What I rely on is the 3 years of service in the state legislature, but there's more to it than that. But in the state legislature, I'm probably the most conservative member of the Tennessee General Assembly currently. I'm the only candidate here and the only member of the General Assembly that has 2 different agencies that have given me a perfect 100% voting record. So I rely on that heavily so that you don't have to guess what type of legislator I will be when I serve for you in Congress. You can look at the bills that I have run, the things that I sponsor, the Second Amendment stances I've taken. So thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Judge Wallace reminded us that Charlie Kirk wanted to be remembered for his faith and his courage. I want to talk about faith in my 90 seconds. Many of you know that Kathy and I are devout Christians. We're devout Catholics. We're in our 40th year of marriage. God has blessed us with 5 wonderful children and 8 grandchildren. I want to focus on our oldest son, Andy, for just a moment, because when Andy and the other kids were small, we prayed with them every day. We sang hymns with them every night. And it was the joy of our lives when our oldest son, Andy, told us when he finished his collegiate career at Notre Dame in 2009 that he wanted to go into the ministry. He wanted to become a priest. He spent 6 years in Rome in the seminary and then came back and was ordained in June of 2015 as a priest of the Diocese of Nashville, and now has a parish, St. Edward, in Nashville. Watching him grow in faith, watching our other children grow in faith, has been an amazing blessing. Charlie Kirk, when you think about him, he was a man of faith. We know he was a witness to the truth. The truth is not a thing. The truth is a person. His name is Jesus. He said, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. Let us honor Charlie Kirk by continuing to be faithful and carry on his legacy.
Hello, Stewart County. Today is Patriots Day. 24 years ago, I was a young Marine on my way down to Camp Pendleton as an infantryman when I heard what is happening in New York. Those events shaped me. 24 years later, yesterday, we see another horrific attack for somebody executing their constitutional rights. It's for these reasons that I cannot sit back in retirement and watch our country rot from within. I'm a retired military service member. I'm a combat Marine. I'm a Purple Heart recipient. I shed blood for this country's flag and my brother's. This is not the country that I fought for or I buried Marines for. That was foreign. Here domestic, I worked as an undercover Metro Nashville police detective in gangs and narcotics. That taught me how to navigate a swamp, how to infiltrate and to protect people that they didn't even know I was there. My life is shaped by what has happened to me. I appreciate the honor of being here with these men and to serve you one day in Congress. My name is Joe Luers. You can find me at joeluersforcongress.com, and I look forward to the questions that Stewart County has for us.
Stewart County, it is such a joy and an honor to be here with you all. I love y'all's name because I wish I could say my mom named me after y'all, but that would be a lie, so I'm not going to say that. It has been my lifelong dream to change my middle name to County, so my name reads Stewart County Park. God bless you. Jacqueline Wallace, thank you for this amazing event. Dave Vance, you have an amazing podcast. God bless you, sir. Patsy Green and John Rustin, God bless y'all for keeping Stewart County amazing. I do want to honor Charlie Kirk. We consider him a martyr for the Christian conservative faith, a martyr for America, and we find it absolutely disgusting what happened to him and his assassination on a college campus yesterday. I also want to honor Penny Bay. Today is 24 years ago, 9/11, when that horrendous attack that took place on our country by radical Islamic terrorists. Penny Bay was in New York at the time, and she was there on ground zero, saving lives. She was part of the emergency response team that responded when the towers were hit. So she's my special guest at my table. So God bless you, Penny Bay. God bless you. We honor you. Thank you. Thank you so much. My name is Stuart Parks. I'm the local candidate in this race. I'm born and raised in District 7. My time's up. I'll pass the microphone. God bless you.
Hi, everybody. Matt Van Epps, honored to be here. Thank you all for being here. I want to start off and just say, Meg and I are praying for Charlie Kirk and his family, and for everybody. What a light for this world and our country that was taken way too early. As I think about today and 9/11, the feelings that I had yesterday that I think we probably all had, that we had 24 years ago, were the same yesterday as 24 years ago. That fear and anger and sadness and pain. And we're going to get through that, and we're going to be better once we get through it by keeping Charlie Kirk and his word and what he's done at the forefront of what we're all doing. Again, Matt Van Epps, I'm a Christian, a husband, a father, a conservative, and a combat veteran. I'm a West Point graduate, was part of the class of 9/11. I was a freshman on 9/11. Went on to fly attack helicopters and then Chinooks with the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment at Fort Campbell just down the road. After that, I worked in small business and served in state government, most recently as the commissioner of the Tennessee Department of General Services. I'm running because duty, honor, and country is core to who I am. My mom was raised very poor. My dad was lower middle class. He was an infantryman in Vietnam, and they have a very special place in my heart. I'm running because I have a young daughter and I want what's best for her. I've been honored to be endorsed by Mark Green, and then just this week, Jim Jordan, who's the chair of the House Judiciary Committee. I ask for your vote and your support. Look forward to the conversation tonight. Thank you all so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
All right, gentlemen, thank you for your introductions. Now we will begin the question portion of the evening. To give you a brief overview of how this will work, there will be at least 5 questions. You will have 90 seconds to answer each question. We will begin with Representative Barrett. On the second question, we will rotate to Representative Bolso, and so on as we progress through the questions, so everyone has an opportunity to be first. You have, again, 90 seconds. You have been made aware of Mr. Vance and his responsibility as timekeeper. We will begin with Representative Barrett, and we will ask the first question. During the Obama administration, training on the threat presented by Islamic doctrine was stripped from federal law enforcement and the military. Will you sponsor legislation to have it reinstated?
100%. I mean, everything that has happened incorrectly, everything that has gone wrong with law enforcement across this country started when President Obama said that the police acted stupidly. Everything that we've dealt with, all the fallout that's happened since then, it's all goes back to that one turning point. And so 100%, this is entirely necessary. We have to take these threats seriously. We look around the world. We look at what's going on in European countries that are being overrun by Islamic terrorists. There are sleeper cells everywhere now. And you look at Ireland, you look at the UK, you look at continental Europe. That's what America has to look forward to if we don't take this seriously. Not only are we need to be training our law enforcement and be putting resources in place to combat this, we need to continue to be serious about what we're doing with our immigration rules. We cannot rely simply on executive orders from President Trump. We have to codify these things and make sure that these rules are permanent. We have to make sure that these folks are not coming to our country.
The answer is yes. I'd be happy to introduce that legislation. Islamic terrorism remains one of the greatest threats to our security as a country. And in part, that is because Islamic terrorists know that we are not an Islamic country. We are a Christian country.
Yeah.
It was that way from the beginning. We had 56 patriots sign our Declaration of Independence, July 4 of 1776. 55 of those 56 signatories to our Declaration of Independence were practicing Christians.
Yeah.
You hear some people try to say they were deists. They were not. 55 of the 56, including Thomas Jefferson, were practicing Christians. We in that document obviously recognized that our rights come from a creator. And they flow directly to the people, not through a government. That same sentiment is expressed by our very first president, George Washington, in his farewell address in September of 1796, where he said that religion and morality were the two, quote, indispensable supports, close quote, of our political prosperity. So yes, we will continue to be vigilant against Islamic terrorism, and we need to be unapologetically a Christian nation, as Charlie Kirk gave us life to prove.
Cop question. Yes. I joined the Metro Police Department in 2008 under the Obama administration when he got hired or when he got elected, and I lived these policies. But I had something that he didn't know. I was a combat Marine, and the Marine Corps taught me how to find these people and how to identify them, and the police department taught me how to arrest them. So we need this legislation. All that is wrong with police, as far as how they're being viewed by the public, is from the left. They villainize police. They villainized me, and all they want to do, trust me when I tell you, they want to serve you. They want to protect you. No police officer comes to work to do anything else. Now, what else is out there? We heard about the open border. Even Biden's DOJ told us that there are people in this country that hate us. They have caught Islamic terrorism coming across the border. And I think it was a handful of them, but how many got through? Trust me when I tell you, they are here. And the only thing standing between them and us is our police. We need to take away the villainism of police, continue to support them, which is exactly what the Trump administration is doing, restoring honor and nobility, because all these men and women want to do is work for you.
The answer is yes. And so Islam is a problem. It's growing, in our country, around the world, in Europe. It's wild, and it's a result of, a secular society. This is a Jesus nation that we live in. I call my campaign a Jesus campaign. And the only thing that can stop, Islam is, Christianity through the Word of God, our Bible. That's why we got to get these Bibles back in the school so people won't be drafted off or inspired or drawn into, the radical teaching that's in the Quran. And so I love our police. I'll do anything and support our police. I support the police, true men that love our country that wear the uniform. I don't support communists that wear the uniform like I saw on January 6th. The Capitol Hill police set us up. And again, I'm not being hard. I love law enforcement. And I even seen it in the prison how cops were just letting, gangsters just fly in drones and all kinds of things. So, I support good, honest men and women that, to wear the uniform. Back to the Islamic part. We got to, get all the sleeper cells and the illegals that came in over the border, because there's so many people here that we don't know anything about them, who they are, and so forth. So we got to get the sleeper cells out of our country. That's my response.
So the answer is yes, and I think Islamic extremism is something that that I deployed. I'm an Iraq and Afghanistan veteran to take the fight against terrorism post 9/11, and I think it's even broader than that. I think we need counterterrorism and anti-terrorism training for our military and our law enforcement. It's incredible. That's how we keep our border secure. Our campaign has talked about 3 pillars: security, opportunity, and prosperity. And under security, it's securing the border. It's standing with the president and the speaker to ensure that we have a secure border, that we deport illegal aliens, and it's also standing with local law enforcement. It's getting the law enforcement, the training, the capabilities, and the equipment that they need. There's a Representative August Fluker is a representative out of Texas, and he had a really important article that he wrote today. He's an Air Force Academy grad deployed to combat, and he's talking about how terrorism is still relevant. The 5th Special Forces Group, my former unit, the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, are still deploying to combat. We still have folks deploying today, and to take the fight against Islamic extremism. And what he talked about is needing to shift focus to AI. As the terrorists adapt, they are figuring out how to leverage those type of systems. And so we need to put resources and training to AI and cyber as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Our second question will go to Representative Balso. Article 3, Section 2 of the Constitution allows Congress to limit the appellate jurisdiction of the Supreme Court and lower federal courts. Given the tendency of the judiciary to participate in lawfare, especially against President Trump, would you support limiting their jurisdiction or removing certain political decisions from their review?
That is a question we have not heard before at any of these forums. It's an excellent question. Article 3, Section 2 of the Constitution. As all of you know, our Constitution broadly specifies Article 1 for legislative issues, Article 2 for executive branch issues, and Article 3 for judicial issues. And the fact of the matter is that Congress does have some authority over what appellate jurisdiction our U.S. Supreme Court has. In my view, now is not the time to remove any of that jurisdiction, because we have 5 hard, true conservatives on our U.S. Supreme Court, and we need them to do as much work as we possibly can while they are currently in office. And let me just use the Second Amendment as an example. In 2008, the U.S. Supreme Court decided a case called Heller versus District of Columbia, in which by just one vote, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that the right to keep and bear arms was a personal right. In other words, We had 4 justices of the U.S. Supreme Court vote that only militia have the right to keep and bear arms. It's not a right that each one of us has individually. That's how close we came to losing that freedom in 2008. Since then, the Supreme Court decided a case called McDonald in 2010 and a case called Bruin in 2022, where they further elaborated on the importance of that Second Amendment right. So I'm happy to keep appellate jurisdiction where it is. Thank you.
Our government is set up in 3 different places. So we have Congress, the executive, and then the Supreme Court. As the rule of law and as a former police detective, I agree with Gino because we have the majority in the Supreme Court. However, I think there needs to be guardrails because with an appellate court or a judicial person that's sitting on the district, they should be limited in power about how they can provide an injunction. Because it seems like with all this lawfare that's going on, that one judge may agree and one judge may not, and it slows the system down. Now, the system's supposed to be slow so we can think about what we're doing as we're going through. However, when you are legitimately going after people for lawfare and you're not treating everybody the same, like Lady Liberty and the scales and she's blindfolded, to me that is fundamentally wrong. And all the law should apply to everybody equally, and there shouldn't be one person or a group of people to interfere with any other the branch of the government.
So the problem is it's not necessarily like the laws. It's the judges that are sitting in these seats, because each seat is sacred. And I've seen this, face to face. I was involved in January 6th. I literally just got out of prison over a year ago. And my communist judge was an Obama-appointed judge that sat in a federal seat. Had the same judge that put Peter Navarro in prison. And this judge, we had every evidence in the world presented that I was not guilty, and he still found me guilty. And how my case was presented, he couldn't blame the jury and say the jury had his hand tied because I elected for a bench trial, which means that judge specifically, decided my verdict and my sentencing. So, and he intentionally went out of his way to sentence me and put me in prison and many other innocent people. So it's not necessarily the laws; it's the crooked judge that's in these seats. And I'll take you an example: Ketanji Brown Jackson. She's incompetent. Joe Biden. He was never your president. He was illegitimately elected, and then he put Ketanji Brown Jackson in that judge seat. So I say we need to get her out, because when Marsha Blackburn asked her that question, she couldn't even define a woman. That is like the most incompetent sign that a judge, has, that they can't be in office. And just because a judge sits in a seat doesn't mean they're holy or they're just a genius. Years ago, the Supreme Court, many years ago, ruled that blacks were property at one time. So you can't look at these judges like they're the Bible. You got to look at the Bible and compare it to the judges' decisions and their statements. So again, we got a lot of bad judges in their seat. Thank you.
So we have a system of checks and balances that's really, really important for our democracy, for our republic. When I rose my hand to swear the oath for the first time at West Point to defend our Constitution, that's what I did, and I've been serving ever since. I was 10 years active duty, and I'm still serving in the National Guard, 20 years total. I think what we shouldn't have are activist judges at a district level that stop national security imperatives from happening. I think there's a couple of examples. I think when the president made a decision to remove criminal illegal aliens and send them out of the country, and it was stopped, that plane was in the air. Unfortunately, it made it, but that had it not been in the air, that could have been a real issue, a real national security issue. And then we look at the president drawing a clear line for narco-terrorism and narco-terrorists, and he made a bold and the right decision to eliminate narco-terrorists bringing toxins into our country from South America, undoubtedly from China, which is another whole huge national security issue. But the president executed based on intelligence and destroyed that narco-terrorist boat. What we can't have are judges that are legislating from the bench and stopping things to protect our country. Thank you.
So in a perfect world, we would not have judicial activism. In a perfect world, we would not have forum shopping. We would not have situations where attorneys go and find the district court judge that they know will give them the ruling that they want in order to frustrate the agenda of the president or whoever it is. We see it from the federal level all the way down to the state level. What we have, and I'll agree with just about everything that was said up here in different parts. I agree with Mr. Parks. Judicial activism is an issue. All the way, we saw the fruits of that just this past week with the young lady that was murdered by a man that had no business being on the street because a judge decided he was smarter than the law itself by continuing to let this man go back out on the street. Cashless bail is a terrible thing that we've got to get rid of as well. But on the federal level, even at the state level, we can win if we take advantage of the system as well. What has happened for far too long is we've allowed the left to do warfare, to do lawfare. And we have sat on the sidelines and sat back and kind of whined about it. Well, why are they doing that? And we haven't used it ourselves. What's important is equal access to the courts so that we all have the ability to go and file what we need to file.
Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Lewis, it's a compound question. Do you support or oppose privatizing the Tennessee Valley Authority? And what can be done to ensure affordability is maintained and the security of our grid improved?
We know that in Cheatham County, the TVA tried to take farmland and impose its will through eminent domain. Fundamentally wrong. We also know that anything the government does is always behind schedule and cost way more than they said it would. So privatization is a way. With regard to the grid, we know that it is fragile, and yet we've done nothing over the decades to fix it. There are things called modular nuclear reactors. They're small, about the size of a city bus. And we can build these things. There are companies out there that can build them within 3 weeks. But you know what? They can't turn them on because of government regulation. These are private companies that can reinstate and reinforce our grid that we know is fragile. And yet we can't turn them on because there's people up top that have all the bureaucracy in the way. And we need more power because of AI and electric cars that everybody is pushing. It's straining us. So the answer is, yes, we should start to privatize things because they're proving it, like in SpaceX. You know, who went up and got those stranded astronauts? Was it NASA? No, it was SpaceX. Thank you.
I support privatizing Tennessee Valley Authority, and here's why. As an economic major, the private enterprise always does things better than the government. And so I have personally had my fights with utility companies. I'll tell you a personal story. Got out of prison for January 6th, trying to adjust to the real world, and all of a sudden I'm getting a huge utility bill from a utility company because, the power was off, and they, then was trying to say that I need to, rewire and do all this stuff. And I was like, no, I just got out of prison, give mercy, all this stuff. And they were saying, no, the government, would crack down, and there's so much, just red tape and regulation that forced them to not give me power. And I'm telling you something, these utility companies have way too much power. If you don't believe me, just leave your, I'm in real estate, and, if an inspector or appraiser, they can almost find some, green energy scam law to try to bust you, to get you to go along with, their green energy deal and all this stuff and so forth. So these utility companies have way too much power. Now, again, with the TFA, I support privatizing them because they would, do their best to keep costs low and run things and not be as woke. We saw during the Obama administration and other left-wing administrations, they tried to make TFA and other government organizations woke and to promote their awful agenda. So that's my response.
So I mean, the question is about our security. Our grid is a national security imperative. The TVA board reports to the president, and the president's been making a lot of changes there. So I think that we're going to see a lot of great outcomes from that, and I stand with the president in that. And TVA has a massive and important role to play. I think, how do we ensure that the power that we need in the future is sustained? It is through nuclear. The first small modular reactor will be at the Clinch River site in East Tennessee. It's supposed to be online in 2032. We should ensure that we do that as fast and as safely as possible. It'll be the first in the United States. The first in North America will actually be in Toronto. And so we should ensure that we invest in nuclear. We also need to invest in oil and natural gas and the things to drive down costs at the pump to, as AI comes online. We already are about 500 nuclear power plants short in this country. And so we've got to invest right now in all forms of oil, gas, and nuclear. I think that's really important. Getting rid of the Green New Deal was so important. I would have signed the big beautiful, would have voted for the big beautiful bill. I think that was really important. So those are the areas we need to continue to invest in. It's good for our national security. It counters China. It'll be good for farmers, families, and small businesses. So thank you.
I am not in favor of privatizing TVA. It provides the cheapest power of anybody in the country. We pay the lowest rates anywhere in the United States. And the reason we do that is because of the power that's provided cheaply and efficiently by the folks at TVA. I am in favor of reforming TVA. I am in favor of revising their charter, because I don't think bullies with guns and bulletproof vests should be able to go on little old ladies' land and scare the crap out of them and tell them that they're going to do whatever they want to do, no matter whatever she tells them to. That shouldn't happen ever in America. Eminent domain is there. There's a process for doing it. Going on people's lands to intimidate them and scare them, and then if they don't do what you want them to do, by taking them then to court and draining them dry, bleeding them to where they're hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt with fighting with you. The only reason that the job stopped, or the project stopped in Cheatham County with TVA was because of President Trump. That's it. If it wasn't for President Trump getting involved, they would have steamrolled over all of those people. 6,000 acres in Cheatham County, 5 century farms, hundreds of families having their property taken from them, ripped from them, forcing them off their land. That should never happen. And we can make sure that stops by revising TVA's charter that hasn't been touched since 1933.
In addressing the question of whether TVA should be privatized, we have to ask another question first. And that question is, how do we make available to residents of Stewart County and other residents in Congressional District 7 the most affordable and reliable energy possible? That's the question, especially given the high cost of living that we have. And based on the experts that I've spoken with, it is clear that TVA needs to remain public in order to continue to provide the most affordable and reliable energy possible. I also understand that to be President Trump's position as well. So I'm very happy to support President Trump with regard to that issue. But it's even a broader issue, because one thing that we have to be focused on is the cost of living that is taking so many of our young families and making it impossible for them to realize the American dream that we and our parents realized. Energy is one factor in that cost of living. Housing is a factor. Transportation is a factor. Food is a factor. And one thing that we've been focused on in my campaign is doing whatever we can at the federal level to get that cost of living down to an affordable rate, especially for young families, because the family is the cornerstone of our society and of our country.
Amen.
Thank you, gentlemen. The next question will begin with Mr. Parks. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution lists specific things that the federal government has been delegated power to legislate on. The 10th Amendment makes it clear that all other power is reserved to the states or the people. This being the case, what role, if any, should the federal government have in education?
That is a great question. The federal government should have zero roles in our in education. Period. It's up to the states. And so now that the Department of Education has been dissolved and it's come back into the state, we need to make some massive changes, because we don't want to keep with the curriculum and the junk that we've been teaching our students for so long. Again, I've talked many times we need to put Bibles back in the schools so people, students know the difference between male, female, know that we are a Jesus nation, a Jesus society. I'm very big on putting prayers back in the school, starting the day with, prayers to help, strengthen our students and teachers too, and faculty and staff. And so again, when the federal government gets involved, it's so hard to fight them, in DC if they want to, put transgenderism or CRT or some kind of bill curriculum and indoctrinate your students. So we can't have that. So again, my answer is very clear. The federal government has zero roles in the state when it comes to education. That's my response. Thank you.
So I'm a limited government guy. I think we have to get as much power out of Washington and back down to the states, counties, communities as we can, where we know what the problems are and what the best solution is. More freedom is better. And so as far as the Federal Department of Education, I'm for eliminating that. It was Jimmy Carter that started it, and he was a Naval Academy guy, so I was a West Point guy. I don't like that already, And then Ronald Reagan tried. He tried to get it back, and he was stopped by Congress. And so it's been, I think it's been an objective for a long time, because it's about getting the resources as close to the problem set, and I think that's really important. So I'm in favor of that, putting more power in the hands of families. I also am pro school choice and believe that families can make the best decision, parents can make the best decision. I'm the father of a young daughter, and I want what's best for her. My folks worked really hard to give my brother and I an opportunity. They didn't go to college, but they wanted what was best for us, and so I truly believe that's where the power needs to be, and we'll fight incredibly hard for that. And I think finally with this too, we have to continue to invest in career technical education. It's an all kind of all schools, all kids. We need to support them as much as possible. Thank you so much.
So one of the first interviews I did when I ran for state representative 3 years ago, announcing that I was going to run, the gentleman conducting that interview asked me if I would support doing away with the Department of Education in the federal government, but he was asking it from the standpoint from the state of Tennessee. If the state of Tennessee decided to deny the federal money that came from the Department of Education, would I support that? And I told him then, and I tell you now, I would crawl hands and feet to the front of the well to vote yes in favor of that bill. Now, it's okay, clap, it's all right. Now, here's the real issue. The real issue is what happens when we do away with the Department of Education. And that's where the rubber meets the road. It's not going to be an instantaneous or clear break from the federal government, because it's going to look a whole lot like what we see with Medicaid, Medicare. It's going to be block grants from the federal government to the states. Here's your education money back. We're not going to necessarily give you all these rules and regulations anymore, but with this money, we're going to have a list of strings attached that says you can only get it if you do items X, Y, Z, so on and so forth. So Is it a clear break from the Department of Education if we do away with that, or is it not? I will fight tooth and nail to make sure that it is a clean break, that they do not have any input whatsoever in what Tennessee does and how we educate our children.
Another great constitutional question, and the answer is no. The federal government has no role in education because it's not mentioned in the Constitution, as the question indicated. When you look at Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, there are only 17 enumerated powers. There's one additional clause, it's called the Necessary and Proper Clause, that Congress has from time to time tried to use to expand its powers, but there are only 17 enumerated powers on which Congress can act in the first place. And over the years, that has been abused, particularly with regard to what's called our Commerce Clause, which is Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8, and our Taxing and Spending Clause, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1, which was the clause that John Roberts used to uphold Obamacare, which was an abomination. Our federal government is a government of limited powers, as the 10th Amendment indicates. I mean, listen to the 10th Amendment. The powers not delegated to the United States by this Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. That's what our Constitution says. Our federal government is one of limited powers. And as your congressman, with regard to any legislation, I'm going to look at that Constitution. And if there's no power within those 17 enumerated powers, I'm voting against it no matter what it is, because our government needs to be limited.
Education. I agree with Jody. It needs to be a clean break. Anything that we do with the federal government always has strings attached. Here's a grant for the police department, but you can only spend it on A, B, C, and D. Well, my police officers need a bulletproof vest. Yeah, that's not going to cut it. You don't get the money for that. So it needs to be cut completely. The federal government, we have allowed it as a people to let it bloat and continue to get bigger and bigger. And it's just like a kid. It's going to keep doing what it's doing because we're allowing it to happen. And by cutting the education department inside the federal government, that pushes it back to the states, because what works in Tennessee works in Tennessee. What works here may not work in Florida, California, or wherever. And the individual states, like the 10th Amendment says, we know how to live. And the federal government isn't supposed to be as big as it is. We allowed it to happen. And it started in the 60s. And then we saw it with DOGE. Like, why do we have all of this? They're spending our money. We are sending money up there in federal taxes, and we're not getting really anything in a return on our investment. We need to stop that. And it doesn't just end with the Department of Education. There's a whole host of other things that need to go away because the Constitution didn't allow it in the first place, but we, the people, just allowed it to happen, and it has to stop.
Thank you, gentlemen. Our next question will begin with Mr. Van Epps. What changes, if any, are needed, in your opinion, to make our elections more secure?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's an America First principle as well for election integrity. And so I think we have to have universal ID. You should have an ID to vote. And we should, we need to ensure that happens. You have one vote, you're able to vote, you're a citizen, you're able to vote one time. And I think that's incredibly important. I think we're gonna have to address mail-in ballots at some point. And I think the rub there as an Army guy being deployed multiple times is how do we ensure that our military is still able to vote in elections. We got to figure that out. But I think at the end of the day, it's we've got to keep focused on free and fair elections. It's what makes our country great. It's what enables us to do this and be here and have this amazing conversation. And so I stand for that. And I think the last thing that I would just offer with this too is my approach. The Army values are still really important to me: loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. And that's part of what we're going to bring forward as a team effort to solve these kind of things like election integrity. Thank you all so much.
So once again, my first bill that I filed as a state representative was to require the state coordinator of elections to clean all the dead people off the voter rolls. They killed that bill. Shocker, right?
Is that a pun?
So here's the deal. The answer to the question, nationwide voter ID, hand-marked paper ballots, election day, not election week or election month. Mail-in ballots are out the window. Absentee ballots only by limited circumstances, particularly taking care of our veterans and military that are actively serving. Getting rid of the voting convenience centers, going back to precinct voting, making sure that our driver's licenses and photo IDs are actually only going to American citizens, not we passed a law this year dealing with that, House Bill 69. It was titled number 69 because that's my state rep district. I worked on that with our majority leader, William Lamberth. And unfortunately, right at the last minute, they stripped the one part out of it dealing with the licenses and how they're issued to illegal aliens. I've been trying to get that done for 3 years now at the state level with a supermajority Republican legislature. I have the same frustrations these guys at TVA have with our supermajority.
We need to do two things to address election integrity. One has to do with counting votes, and the other has to do with election fairness. Let's deal first with counting votes. Isn't President Trump just wonderful? Yeah. Look at all those executive orders that he's issued that shows the way our country needs to go. And there was one in particular that you may recall that he issued on March 25 of this year. Executive Order 41248 that dealt specifically with election integrity, what needs to be done to make sure that the counting of the votes occurs the way it should. Yeah. We simply in Congress need to codify what President Trump has led us on in his executive order issued on March 25 of 2025. But there's also a second component to this, election fairness. We have dark money coming into all of our political races across the country, distorting what the voters are choosing to decide. Yeah. And that's beginning to happen even in this race. Hundreds of thousands of dollars coming from DC PACs, backing up candidates to try to influence the way voters view candidates and the way that they vote. And the second thing we need to do after we codify President Trump is to amend the Constitution to make sure that under the First Amendment, corporations and PACs no longer have a right of free speech to influence our elections the way they do.
Keep passing me, Gino. You don't like me, do you? You know, I'm gonna go home. Elections. Now, in Iraq, as serving as a Marine, we tried to have free elections for the Iraqi people. And they didn't have IDs. They didn't have anything. So you know what we did? There was a purple dye that we would dip their finger in, so we knew that they only voted once. Now, I'm not advocating for that, but what I am saying is we need to have real voter ID laws. When I go to vote and I hand them my ID in the state of Tennessee, they know who I am, they know where I live, and then I can vote. That's not like that in other parts of the country. And it blows my mind that I need a driver's license to drive a car, I need a driver's license if I smoked, buy cigarettes, alcohol, all these things, but not to vote in some parts. Now, the key is getting rid of mail-in ballots, with the exception of the military. I was that guy that was forward deployed, and it has to come through the mail. And there really needs to be a better way to do that, because I have sent in a ballot that never made it because I was forward deployed. And there needs to be election day. Let's get rid of these computers that we know that can be hacked. Paper can't be hacked, just like that purple finger can't be hacked. There is a better way, and Donald Trump is doing that, and we need to codify that.
Wow, an election integrity question. That hits really deep because the whole reason why I was thrown in prison was because being there on January 6th, and we were peacefully present to share with the federal government and the world that Joe Biden was not our president and he was illegitimately and unlawfully elected. These voting machines are way more easily hacked than you'll ever realize. The first thing I want to do is get rid of these voting machines. Also, mail-in voting, mail-in ballot, they got to go. That's just not way. That's not how we vote. We're a Jesus nation. We do things, with integrity. One person gets the vote. Dead people don't vote. Illegals do not vote. And the same thing with the census. All illegals need to be taken off the census so we can get an accurate count of who lives where and, and certain congressional maps. I'll tell you, election integrity is so key. We don't have a country if we don't have election integrity. I was thrown in prison. Many other people are dead. You look at, when Joe Biden illegitimately took office, the 11 brave service members that died in Afghanistan when, we gifted the Taliban with all, billions of dollars worth of weapon and so forth. And there's still January 6 heroes that are dying, over January 6th in the harsh prison conditions. So election integrity is a huge thing. Same day in-person voting is my policy.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Gentlemen, it has gone so well that there has been an executive decision to open up the floor to questions from our attendants. So, we have allocated 15 minutes. We will operate under the same rules, 90 seconds per question. We'll ask that you approach the mic. Approach behind the table here, wait for me. We'll ask that you approach the mic, introduce yourself, and indicate whether you would like for each candidate to answer or one specific candidate. And then, again, time rules are in effect, and we will go until 15 minutes has elapsed.
Any of us?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. I'm asking.
We move that a little bit closer to the people. Thank you, sir.
We do ask that you observe rules of decorum and decency. And again, ladies and gentlemen, also, you see how I'm holding the microphone. If you would like to be heard, hold it as I'm holding it.
Hi, Jonathan League. My question is for Mr. Van Epps. As a conservative leader who served as a strategic planner in Tennessee's COVID-19 Unified Command Group, why did you support any level of mask promotion, given that Governor Lee and many conservative Tennesseans opposed mask mandates as government overreach? And how did you justify aligning with public health measures that some in your base viewed as infringing on personal freedoms?
Right. I'm so glad you brought that up. Thanks for the question. So let me just start by how I got onto the Unified Command Group. So I was, global pandemic happened, and I was serving in the Tennessee Department of Transportation, and as a former special operator, I was asked to serve my state during a time of a global pandemic, and that's absolutely what I decided to do. And I said, absolutely, I'll serve. As a former special operator who deployed to defend his country to fight against terrorism, when you're asked to do it, that's what you do. You stand up and do it, and would make the same decision again. Let me be very clear, though. As a staffer on the Unified Command Group, I never supported or a vaccine mandate. Was never in favor of a vaccine mandate. I'm so glad that Tennessee never had a vaccine mandate. I'm glad that President Trump in Operation Warp Speed never had a vaccine mandate. Vaccine mandates are decisions for between families and their healthcare provider, and so I'm just I just want to be very clear on that. That's my position on it. I would serve again in that. My job as a staffer was to provide support to that team, and did that for for a couple of months and before moving on to the next job. So I appreciate that question. I think the other just final piece I'm getting the time is that Tennessee was the fastest recovering economy post-COVID as well. Thank you.
I have a question for the entire panel. I'd like to know where you stand with President Trump's suggestion to ban transgenders from buying guns. I'd like to start with Mr. Parks, please.
Playing favorites?
God bless you, Miss Penny Faye. That is a beautiful, beautiful question. The problem is not the guns, it's the transgenderism. I have come on the scene, back when I first ran in 2022 that I wanted to ban transgenderism. We have this weird idea in certain Republican circles that we can, how do I say it? Like a child, we ban it up until the age of 18. And then when the person is past the year 17 and 364 days alive and they turn 18, they can make the decision to swap their gender. Well, there's many students that are still in senior in high school that, can swap their gender, come in. Men start wearing a dress, girls start growing a beard, and I'm against that. So the problem is never the gun. When you see, like at the Covenant's school shooting, the mass shooting that took place in Nashville, that was a very severe. That was an evil act, and she had a lot of hatred towards Christians, which we got to put an end to that. So it's never the gun. The guns are never the problem. You look at this mass school shooting that come from the transgender crowd. That gives you, that accelerates your cause for even more, free, to get rid of gun control and more free gun rights, because there's so many sick, demented people in this world. I just got out of prison over a year ago, and the people I was in prison with, they were getting near their release date, and I thought, oh my God, this individual is about to walk the street. We all need guns. You all need to arm up in Stewart County. I'm serious. And so I'm against gun-free zones, because that's the majority of these mass shooting gun-free zones. So.
I am pro Second Amendment. We wouldn't have the First Amendment without the Second Amendment, and I think any erosion to that is not something that we should do. So I am pro Second Amendment. Thanks.
So there I was, minding my own business. I was with a young lady today, and we went into a gun store. And just went in there to kind of cruise around, introduce himself. Young lady walked out with a gun. Now, first time this person ever bought a gun and had ever seen the ATF form. And as she's answering yes and no to these forms, she came to the question that said, have you ever been adjudicated mentally defective? No. Now, we know that people that are transgender are what? They're delusional, they have a mental illness, so by that form, you should not get the weapon. However, how do we prove it? I could leave the funny farm right now and then walk to my local gun store and buy a gun by just checking no. They got Hunter Biden by saying that I'm not addicted to illicit drugs, but yet all over Facebook he was doing drugs. So that's what got Hunter Biden wrapped up in a federal gun case. When you do an instant background check and it asks you, have you ever been convicted of a felony, domestic violence, and all these things, like it's an instant flag, because if you've been arrested, you've been arrested. So absolutely, transgender people should not have guns, and it's written in the law. We just need to enforce it.
Let me give you the answer that I think Richard Archie would give you, which is the correct constitutional answer. And it shows how all of us should think about this. President Trump has suggested that transgender individuals not be allowed to purchase guns. Is that constitutional? Well, here's the way we have to look at it. You have to recognize that under our decision that Justice Clarence Thomas wrote on June the 22nd of 2022, that the question is this: would such a law be consistent with our nation's tradition of firearms regulation when the Second Amendment was adopted on December 15 of 1791? And if the answer is yes, that if a law banning transgenders from buying guns is consistent with restrictions that existed at the time the Second Amendment was adopted, that law would be constitutional. Now, whether we should adopt it or not would be a different question. But that's how we have to analyze this. We have to look back historically and see whether on December 15 of 1791, our law provided that those who are mentally ill are not permitted to purchase firearms. And if the answer to that question is yes, then what President Trump is proposing is constitutional, and I will support him if he's actually making a constitutional rule. If the answer to that question is no, that is, if the historical analysis shows that we could not pass such a law consistent with the Second Amendment, then we would all be duty-bound in Congress to oppose it.
That's right.
So instead of focusing on the gun, why don't we focus on the transgender? Instead of banning someone from being able to exercise their Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms, why don't we just stop them from becoming transgender? We passed a law in Tennessee that bans transgender surgeries on minor children. That is the first step in many steps that have to be taken to do away with this social contagion that has taken over our country. We've got kids all over the place on these psychotropic drugs. They're being sucked into this delusion through the internet, through other kids, through peer pressure. This is a very nuanced and global issue that we have to address. Once again, Gino is spot on, and citing Richard Archie in Stewart County is never a bad idea. The question is whether or not it's a constitutional restriction. I don't think it is on its face the way the question is posed. It certainly would depend upon how it was written. I can't answer that in 90 seconds without knowing other facts. And sorry to give a lawyer answer, but that's what we do. Let me get back to you on that. That's the way I would tell you if I was representing the Stewart County Commission. Not sure on that, but let me do some research. I'll get back to you. Without knowing the facts and the details to put that up against the Constitution, I don't know that we can actually answer the question.
Now Richie can.
Here we go. The operative clause of the Second Amendment says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
That's right.
The President has issued an executive order to his Department of Justice that says he expects to see them root out the state's problems across the board and to return the Second Amendment to its original construct and intent. I read the executive order and it's pretty good. Would you, each of you, if you're successfully elected to this position, offer legislation that would codify the fact that what we need to do is return the Second Amendment to the original construct and not this monkey mess that we've got in place now?
Thank you for the question, and the simple answer is yes, I would be eager to do that. I have run Second Amendment bills every year since I've been in the legislature. It is something that is very, very important to me. I was also one of the few legislators, unfortunately, that signed on to a letter to the Attorney General and the Governor urging them not to appeal the Hughes decision. So the answer to the question is 100% adamantly yes. It's a very simple, maybe the easiest amendment in the Constitution to read and comprehend. Shall not be infringed is plain English. There's no nuance there. And so what we've got in Tennessee is a spaghetti junction of laws and regulations that have been passed and implemented going all the way back to Reconstruction. And we've never had the courage as a legislature or had a governor with the courage to actually start cutting those laws out of our law books. And what is created is confusion. If you're a gun owner in Tennessee, you don't know whether to scratch your rear end or wind your watch, depending upon what jurisdiction you're in, because the laws are conflicting. And so we've got, At the state level, if the federal government's not going to do it, the state level's got to rewrite the whole code as it relates to the Second Amendment. But we can do it at the federal level and make sure that it works across the country.
Richard, once again, a great question. And my answer is a little different. No, I do not think that we need any additional laws because I think the Second Amendment is clear enough. We have a patchwork of both federal laws and state laws across the country that are unconstitutional, including here in Tennessee, which some of us in the General Assembly, including my good friend Jay Reedy, have been trying to work to deal with for the last several years. But just starting with the federal government, I mean, there was in the 1930s an act passed called the National Firearms Act that, frankly, is suspect in many respects. Unless someone can actually look at each provision of the National Firearms Act and connect it to a similar restriction that existed at the time the Second Amendment was adopted, then those particular provisions of the National Firearms Act are unconstitutional and cannot be enforced. And we need an Attorney General, Pam Bondi, to specify as such. The same thing is true with the Gun Control Act of 1968. There are provisions in that Gun Control Act of 1968 that cannot withstand a proper constitutional analysis under the Supreme Court's decision in Bruin. That same analysis applies to the laws here in Tennessee and to laws in most of the blue states. So, Richard, my answer, no new laws. Let's just get the attorney generals at the federal and state levels to follow the Constitution.
The Second Amendment is a right. It's not a suggestion, it's a right. I don't go anywhere without a pistol. And I've learned a lot about constitutional law and how it goes against guns from this man right here, John Harris, who has written Gun Trust for me because I have to obey all of these laws, but yet I have a failure to understand how we have let all of these laws happen. And usually the legislative branch, their answer to everything is let's just create more laws. Well, we don't need to create more laws. We need to enforce the ones we have, and then we need somebody to look at that and with a quantitative analysis and say, hey, this doesn't make sense. I'm a legislator. Let me amend it. And that would probably rule out a lot of problems. Tennessee has its issues, and we've allowed it to progress to where we have John Harris fighting with all these courts over something that is a fundamental right. You need a driver's license to drive a car. That's a privilege. You don't need a license to carry a firearm. It's written in the Constitution that most of us in this room, at one way or another, have sworn to protect.
That's a great question, Mr. Richard. And also, my answer goes back to what Penny Fay asked with the transgender piece. And I think we need to revisit that even more. So, my Second Amendment policy is, I interpret it as it is written, which is shall not infringe on a citizen's right to bear arms. Now, I have street smarts, and it's unfortunate because I was homeschooled, went to a private Christian education, was in a Christian bubble, then I was thrown in prison. These inmates, they don't care, I'll say this, these inmates, they don't care. If they want you dead, they'll find a belt, whatever, a butter knife, whatever have you, and kill you. So that's why it's important for you to go armed at all times. Now, I got news for you. The left, they think every single one of us have a mental illness. So this whole thing about, right to carry a firearm, except when you're mentally ill, I don't play that game because they think, and I know you're not, y'all are all geniuses in my book, but the left, they know how to tell lies, and these George Soros prosecutors, they can do something to get your gun rights taken away. When I was raided by the counterterrorism unit of the FBI, I went for years without being able to have a firearm. Even people who lived in the same house as me couldn't have a firearm. So, again, I hate transgenderism, but I believe that transgenders should be able to carry, be able to carry. And the same thing with criminals. I'm the most pro-Second Amendment candidate in this race because I went on 99.7. They asked me the same question. Do you support criminals being able to carry firearms? The answer is yes, because they think we're all criminal. The left, you got to know these people. They're evil, and they hate us.
I'll be quick with this because I'm not a lawyer. So I think if it bolsters the Second Amendment, we should do it. I stand with the president to do that. And if there's a better course of action at some point in the future, then we should look at that as well. But I stand with the president to do that. So thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are running short on time. We have one person who is still in line. We're a little past 15 minutes. We do ask that you briefly and succinctly, but we do not want to leave this gentleman out, but we are just a little bit past 15 minutes. Sir, please.
Thank you. Josiah Baker, National Mises Caucus board member. We're all conservative here, but clearly over the last few years, that term has began to mean nothing to some people when they get into power. And I'm curious, all of you claim to be conservative. What actions set you apart in the level of conservatism you bring to the choice of candidates here when we've seen rhinos run rampant through this party as of recent in our state?
So I think for me, like we've been asked this question I think before a couple of times, and like what defines you? How do you know what defines your conservatism? And I think for me, faith, family, and freedom is really core and important to who I am. The Army values are really core to who I am, and I think that's important. It guides the decision processes. I'm a limited government person. Want to return power to the states. I'm a low taxes person. I think we get the big beautiful bill to lock in the largest tax cuts in American history was really important, and I think that's important. I'm for more freedom. I think more freedom is really important as well, and it's there's a question on differentiation too, and having sworn to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States and still doing that today in the National Guard. That is something I take very, very seriously, and we'll work incredibly hard with the teams that we put together to do that, to drive efficient and effective government. I think Doge was right. I think the rescissions packages are good. I think working to ensure we get to a balanced budget is really important. That's a national security issue and something that we're going to have to work on. It's for our families, our farms, our small businesses, and that's really important. So thank you.
Being a conservative, my view is, following the Bible. Jesus was a conservative. That's where we get our, right wing, so to speak, inspiration is from the Bible. We're a Jesus nation. I've said that over and over. I'm unvaccinated. I didn't get the death jab, so you don't have to worry about, electing me and going to another special election because I fell over from a heart attack. So, you're safe. Your counties will save money by electing me. Let's see, what else? I mean, being a conservative, I don't support, blowing money on Ukraine. Ukraine started that war, and so, I don't support funding fake wars. What else? I mean, again, you heard my Second Amendment answer. I believe that criminals, you make a mistake, you do the time, you get out, you should have your firearm back. I hate this stuff where, somebody makes a mistake at 18 and then they're a grandfather and they still can't protect their kids and can't even have a hunting rifle. I believe, in a Christ-centered education. This secular stuff doesn't work. It's never worked. It's junk. What else being conservative mean? I support, free speech, no censorship. You should be able to post on social media, and the conservative, we should be the light, on a shining hill, so to speak. People coming to us, liking our social media, not, having some woke Silicon Valley executive censor you and try to shadow ban you and all this stuff. So that's my response.
I'm a first-time candidate. I'm not a lawyer either. What I am is a combat Marine that upheld the Constitution and shed blood for it. I believe that's a pretty good answer for conservatism. I don't believe in reckless spending. If I can't balance my own budget here in my house to take care of my family, and then next month I have to get a credit limit increase and run into debt, that's not fiscally conservative. So I run a household on a budget, and the Congress should be doing that. They're just writing checks, and they're sending money all over the place. It's your money. It's our money. I don't believe in that. The government is extremely bloated, and that's not the way it's supposed to be. So we need to claw that back and push everything back down to the state. That's what makes me conservative. But more importantly, on the piece of paper, I noticed it has like all the conservative values here at the GOP. And we talk about rule of law. Well, rule of law is great, but you need to be able to enforce it. And you need to be effective. And as a police officer and a detective, I was on the front lines enforcing the law and protecting everything, because there is the book way and then the street way. So my record is over 25 years of being a Marine and being inside the police department. Thanks. The pretty lady in the back said time.
You know, what is a conservative? What are you trying to conserve? What are you trying to preserve? You're conserving the Constitution. A conservative is someone who loves the Constitution and follows it. I love this country. I love that document. I love the Constitution. Our federal government right now is not being run according to our Constitution. We need a conservative to go to Washington from this district who understands the Constitution thoroughly and who will actually abide by it. You know, over the weekend, I watched again President Reagan's farewell address that he gave on January 11 of 1989. And listen to some of what he said. He said, America is freedom. Isn't that true? He said that man is not free unless government is limited. Isn't that true? He said, and I quote, where government increases, liberty decreases. A conservative is someone who limits government and leaves the power in the hands of the people or of the states, as our 10th Amendment specifically requires. That is what a conservative is.
A conservative is how you analyze every issue. The difference between being a Republican and being a conservative is whether or not you're looking for a government solution or an independent liberty solution, a personal responsibility solution. Every bill that has come before the state legislature, every bill that I could consider as a member of Congress, could be analyzed with 4 simple questions. Why are we doing this? Is it necessary for us to do this? Is it constitutionally sound? And how are we going to pay for it? If you can't answer those 4 questions, why are we even considering that law to be put in place? I've been endorsed by the House Freedom Caucus because of my conservative record. I mentioned earlier having a 100% conservative voting record. There's 2 of us on the dais that have served in the legislature. We have a voting record you can look at. And the difference is, how do you get to that 100%? Where others stop at 50 or 60 or 70 or 80% conservative. Where's the difference? The difference is where the fight is. The difference is when you're willing to go against your own party and your own leadership because you know that they're doing establishment things, not conservative things. They're not promoting liberty and freedom. They're promoting their best interests.
Gentlemen, we want to thank each of you for your answers and your candor tonight. We want to thank those of you in attendance. The last thing that we will do is we will have 90 seconds for each of you.
30. Make it quick.
My apologies, I did not get the memo. 30 seconds. We did it in alphabetical order. We've kind of lost track of order, so we'll start in reverse alphabetical order. And Mr. Van Epps.
Well, no, first and foremost, thank you all so much for being here. This is how we keep our country great, is by all of us showing up and being a part of this process. And you are patriots to do that, and I really appreciate that. I'm a former special operator. I worked in small business, served in state government, still serving in the National Guard. And I think the differentiation is boots on the ground leadership, being able to pull teams together, and would ask for you all to join our team. Would be honored to have your vote and your support. Finally, thank you for the patriots on 9/11, for our first responders, our military, and everyone that supports them. for what they did 24 years ago. Thank you all so much.
Stewart County, thank you so much for allowing us to come be a part of y'all's evening. For those of you that don't know who I am, I'm Stuart Park. My campaign motto is putting America first means putting you first. I'm born and raised in Middle Tennessee in the 5th District and made a career restoring historic properties and preserving our Tennessee wood. And then the Biden administration threw me in prison. Now, fortunately, President Trump pardoned me, and I got my clean record back, and very thankful for that. So thank you all again. We'd love to have your vote on October 7th.
Donald Trump told us they're coming for you. I'm just standing in the way. I've stood in the way as a combat Marine and as a Metro Police detective working in gangs. I want to stand with J.D. Vance and heroes like Tom Homan to keep you safe, to stand in the way. There's no other way to say it. Our safety is in jeopardy. Help me help you make America safe again. Thank you.
Charlie Kirk wanted to be remembered for faith and courage. We talked about faith. Let's talk about courage. It is the one essential virtue that you need in any elected official. Please check my record. I'm Gino Bolso. I passed almost 24 bills. In the last 3 years, I've been the most pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, most anti-illegal immigration, and most get boys out of girls athletics of anybody in our General Assembly. Go to votegino.com, join us where I'll fight to maintain those principles that Charlie Kirk held so dear.
I am the rural conservative candidate. My roots are in small town Tennessee. My business, my family, my life is in small town Tennessee. I spent my entire adulthood, my entire professional career representing regular people fighting against big government, big money, and big influence. And I'm going to do that continuously for you as your next congressman. My website is jodybarrett.com. I hope you'll go on and support us. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to remind you to pick up the silent auction items. You'll see Miss Tess Robbins or Miss Patsy Green. Also, we want to thank each and every one of you for your interest. We want to thank again our candidates, our dignitaries, and I want to remind you to go out and vote. Please, that is such an important opportunity we are given living in this great country. So please exercise it. Be informed and exercise your right to vote. Ladies and gentlemen, if the candidates are available, they may stick around for an informal meet and greet.